Hello, my name is Tracy Allen, and I want to welcome you to Cooking with Some Friends. Hello, and welcome to Cooking with Some Friends. I am kind of going to be in a rush this evening since we have ball games and the weather feels so much like fall. I've been chilly all morning, so I'm going to make some cheeseburger soup so we have that to for either lunch or supper, whichever we decide to have it for. But it's a very simple recipe and has some basic ingredients that you might have on hand. So I have already gone ahead and browned my hamburger, and I took about 1.5 pounds of hamburger and browned that with just a little bit of salt and pepper. I don't want to add too much at this point because I'm going to add more later. So I have that. I'm going to set that in my bowl. And I did a little trick. I don't know if any of you guys probably already knew this little trick. I took a piece of foil and put it in my drain to protect it. And then I drained my hamburger grease into that foil. So I'm going to let that set up, and then I can just put the foil around it and throw it in the trash. So I don't have to find another container for that. Anyway, so now in my stock pot, I am going to go ahead and melt on a medium heat. I'm going to melt a tablespoon of butter. And this is the same pan I did the burger in. So you don't have to dirty more than one pan. And in that, I am going to put my onion, celery, and carrots. And you can use shredded carrots or matchstick carrots, or you can use baby carrots that you cut up pretty fine. I'll put those in. And I'm going to put my onion in, and I chopped up about 1/4 cup of onion. And my celery, I did about 3/4 cup to 1/2 to 3/4 cup of celery. Okay. So I want to saute those in that butter until the onions just begin to become translucent before I go on from there. My onions are becoming aromatic and they're becoming translucent as well. So I'm going to put in my basil and my parsley, and the recipe calls for a teaspoon of dry basil and a teaspoon of parsley. Put those in. You could add garlic to this. I just wouldn't go overboard with it since it is a cheeseburger soup, and you want to replicate that cheeseburger flavor. Okay. So now I'm ready to go ahead and put my potatoes, my hamburger, and my chicken broth in this. I'm going to bring that up to a boil and then drop it to a simmer, cover it, and let it simmer until the potatoes are tender. When they're almost tender, I'm going to make a roux in another pan, and then I'll stir that into this. Okay. So I'm going to add my broth. My potatoes, and I've got 3 to 4 cups of potatoes that I've cubed up. And then my hamburger. Okay. Stir all those together, bring it up to a boil, cover it, drop it to a simmer until those potatoes are tender. I moved my pot with my soup into a back burner so I could go ahead with making my roux. And I'm going to make this in a small pan because then I'm going to transfer it. So I want to melt my butter in my pan. I'm out of breath. I've been running up and down the steps in between cooking and all that. So I'm not going to stay cold for very long. So once my butter melts, I'm going to stir in my flour and make that roux. Then I'm going to add the roux to my soup, and then I can go ahead and add my cheese, which you can use shredded Velveeta, or if your Velveeta isn't cold from the refrigerator, if it's a new package, you can just cube it up pretty small and add it that way. And my cream, so I'm going to add those two, stir those in, and the very last thing, after I remove it from the heat, I'm going to stir in a 1/4 cup of sour cream. So first I want to make my roux by melting my butter and adding my flour. And anytime, and I stress this all the time, I know, anytime you make a roux, you want to make sure that you cook it for a few minutes so it loses that flour taste. You can cook it a little longer if you like to have a darker roux. Just make sure that the heat is only on a medium, because if it's too high, once you add your flour, it will burn. So you want to make sure that you don't do that. So I'm ready to add my flour. Stir that in to make my roux. And this will be pretty thick. If you make your roux thinner than this, your soup won't thicken up as nicely, so you want to make sure it's a pretty thick roux like this one is. This is just a good alternative. We like potato soup, which has some similarities to this, except we use ham in our potato soup. And then we have another ingredient. And when I share my potato soup recipe with you, we have an unusual ingredient that we add, but we really like the body it gives to the soup. So. Okay, I'm going to set that off the heat, turn my back burner off, pull my stock pot up, remove the lid. And I want to stir in my roux. And this is the thickener to your soup. Okay. So you want to bring that to a boil, but mine was already boiling. My pot was really hot back there on the back burner because I was trying to rush it for the video. So there you can see it's starting to thicken up. I was going to tilt my pan and show you that my soup has started to thicken. Now I want to reduce my heat and go ahead and add in my cheese. Doesn't matter which order, but I'm going to go ahead and let this start melting. So, like I told you before, if you use shredded Velveeta, it will melt down pretty quickly, but if you use that's at room temperature and cube it, it melts pretty quickly as well. Okay. Then I'm going to add in my cream. And I do want to add a little bit of salt and pepper. My broth has some salt in it, so that would add some saltiness. You don't want to overdo it. And I did add a little bit of salt to my burger while it was cooking, but I didn't want to overdo it there either. So I'm just going to add a little bit more. Okay. Just want to cook that so the flavors are all together and my cheese melts. And then just before I serve it, we'll go ahead and add that sour cream. So it makes a really nice, thick, cheesy cheeseburger soup. Hello and welcome to Cooking with Some Friends. I am making a quick supper because my sister and I spent our day shopping, or at least a good part of our day, and so I'm going to use up some leftover burger that ground beef that I had in the refrigerator. We had meatloaf for lunch yesterday, and I'm just going to make a half a recipe of the recipe that I'm going to make. Now the recipe I'm going to make is called Chilligetti, and I like to look at the history of foods, and I don't know if it's the nerd in me or whatever, but Chilligetti, it's said to have gotten its start here in the United States by some Greek immigrants, and when they came to the U.S. in the 1920s, that's where this is supposed to have originated. So it's just kind of fun to know where food customs have come from, but and if I were making a whole recipe, I would use 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of hamburger. But like I said, I'm just using up some leftovers. So I have about 1 pound of hamburger here that I'm going to break up into my pan. And if I were doing the full recipe, I would use my Dutch oven. But since I'm not, I'm just going to use my larger saucepan. So I'm going to break that up and brown that. And with it, I'm going to put in 1/8 to 1/4 of an onion that I've chopped up. So I'm going to let that brown up. I'll probably add my salt and pepper here to it too. Wash my hands off a little bit. I like to add the salt and pepper while the hamburger is cooking to flavor it completely. So the salt and pepper is just to taste, so you determine how much you want. So I'm going to let that brown up, and then I'm going to add my other ingredients to this. Now on the counter, I thought this was kind of unique. One of the fun things that we did, of course I always have to go to the hobby store, and one of the things that while we were in there, my sister had asked me if I'd seen this video that she had seen, and I hadn't seen it. But it was for a fall decoration that the person on the video had taken just some straw mats, and so I bought some. I was actually looking for these galvanized little canisters because I was going to make pumpkins out of them and put them outside. But my husband seems to think that I'm doing the pumpkins as often as I did the rabbits at Easter, so I'm kind of overdoing it. But anyway, she took a straw mat, and you can use any straw mat. I'm going to put 2 thicknesses just because I like how it looks thick. And then she found a cornucopia, and I'm not going to attach this right now permanently, but she put the cornucopia on top of it, and she had a witch's hat. Now, who would have thought? So anyway, I thought that was a really cute idea. So that's going to be once I attach it, one of my fall decorations. So I'm going to set that aside. I'm not really into all the witches stuff and all that, but I'm more into the pumpkins. But that was a cute one. So I've got my witch's hat. So I'm going to let this brown, and once it's all browned, I'm going to stir in my tomato products. And you can use tomato juice if you want to. I just like it a little heartier than that. So I'm going to use some petite diced tomatoes and some tomato sauce instead of tomato juice, just because I like it to be a little thicker. So I will add those in once I cook and drain my hamburger. Okay, my burger is cooked, and so now I'm ready to start adding some of the other things. Like I said, I normally would, if I'm following the recipe exactly, I would add tomato juice, but I'm going to substitute for a little more body. I'm going to substitute a 15-ounce can of tomato sauce and a 14.5-ounce can of petite diced tomatoes. Pull it out of there. And then to that, I also want to add my Worcestershire sauce. And since I'm cutting this in half, it'll only take a tablespoon. heat down just a little for a minute. And then I'm going to put in my seasonings. I've already added my salt and pepper, so I want to add some cumin, and I'm going to put in about 1/4 teaspoon. It seems like it's the cumin that I always have trouble with that lid. So this is just, Chilligetti is just a combination of those chili ingredients you like along with the spaghetti that you like. So then I have my chili powder, and I'm going to put in about 1 tablespoon, because we like the chili flavor, of chili powder. And then I'm going to also add just about 1/2 cup to 1 cup of water. That's why I like to use tomato sauce instead of tomato juice, because with adding that water, it kind of dilutes it as well. So I'm going to bring this up to a boil, and then I'm going to take my spaghetti noodle, and I have a 16-pound package. I'm going to use half of these once this comes up to a boil, but I'm going to break them into about 2-inch pieces, which if you're a true Italian, that would be a big no-no. Turn my heat down, now I can't get a boil. So once this comes up to a boil and I add my broken pieces of spaghetti, I'm going to reduce the heat to a simmer, and I'm going to let this simmer about 9 or 10 minutes, or until the spaghetti has gotten soft or al dente. And then the only thing I have to add during the cooking process is I have rinsed and drained a can of kidney beans. Again, you would double that if you're making the whole recipe. And that's all that goes in it. Now, once we serve it, we like to serve it with sour cream. I do. My husband doesn't like sour cream. Sour cream and cheddar cheese. So, like I said, it's the best. It's just a real combination of having spaghetti and chili at the same time. Sometimes you see Cincinnati chili or Cincinnati spaghetti, whichever way you want to call it, where they make the spaghetti and put it on the plate and then put the chili over the top of it. Chili powder on my counter. Okay, we're almost to that boil, so that I can break up my pasta and put that in. If I hadn't turned my heat down, I would have been fine. And this pot will be enough to serve my husband and I, and sometimes even enough left over for lunch, warmed up, and it's super good warmed up as well. Sometimes I like spaghettis and chilies and those kinds of things a second time more than I do the original time. So through the month of October and into November, we're going to have a drawing going on. So I hope you join that. I hope you subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any of the recipes we have going on. And I just hope you enjoy our videos. Okay, so we've got a boil going, so I'm going to break my pasta, maybe, into those pieces and put those in. So you break each one into 3 to 4 sections. I usually end up popping spaghetti all over the place. Didn't do so bad that time. About half of it there, a little bit more. Okay. I've got it stirred in, I want to drop this to a simmer. And we'll come back when we're ready to add our beans. Okay, my spaghetti is tender. I don't know if you can see that. Most of the juices have cooked down so that it's a nice sauce, and it's very tomatoey. So then all I have to do is add those kidney beans that I drained and rinsed, and this has to heat through, and then it's ready to serve. So again, you can put sour cream over the top, cheddar cheese. So your combination of spaghetti and Chilligetti. Thanks for joining us for this session of Cooking with Some Friends. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And find us on Facebook at Cooking with Some Friends.